Welcome back. Hopefully you've worked through all the speaking videos and you've done all the exercises. If you haven't, go and do them now and then come back to watch this video. Let's bring everything together and summarize what happens in the speaking part of the exam. Do you remember how long the test lasts? How many parts there are? And what happens in each part? The test lasts about 14 minutes in total, and you do the speaking test with a partner. In part 1, you're asked some general questions about where you're from, about your hobbies, your family and friends, holidays. They're very general questions and they're relatively easy. In part 2, the long turn, the examiner gives you 2 pictures and you compare them, and then you answer a question about the pictures. You speak by yourself in this part for 60 seconds, and you also comment on your partner's pictures for about 10 or 15 seconds. In part 3, you speak with your partner about a task. You need to give your opinion, you need to ask for your partner's opinion, and agree or disagree. And then try to come to a decision with your partner about the task. This part 3, lasts for 4 minutes in total. For the final 4 minutes of the test in part 4, you and your partner answer the examiner's questions. And these questions are based on the topic you discussed previously in part 3. And that's the speaking test. Now, when you go to take the speaking test at your local Cambridge examining centre, you'll be with a big group of candidates. And they're just like you, waiting to do the speaking test. It's possible that one of these candidates does not arrive at the examining centre. That means there is a partner missing for someone. For example, in a group of 20 candidates, there will be 10 pairs of students, so 10 speaking tests. But if one student doesn't come, there are 19 students. So what happens in that case? One student cannot do the exam alone, so if this does happen, there will be a group of 3 at the end of the exam session. This doesn't happen often, but if it happens to you, you will do the test with 2 other students, not 1, and the exam will be longer. The timing will change. Part 1 questions will be 3 minutes, not 2. Part 2, describing the photos, will be 6 minutes, not 4. But you still speak for 60 seconds. That doesn't change. And part 3, you all discuss the task together in a group of 3, and then you will answer questions individually in part 4. So parts 3 and 4 take 9 minutes with a group of 3 and not 7. The test is exactly the same, apart from the time. It just takes a bit longer. So everything you've learned on this course is exactly what will happen if you're in a group of 3. And as I say, probably this won't happen, but I want you to know about it just in case it does. When you speak in the exam, you are assessed by an examiner. To assess means to evaluate your ability to speak. Do you remember the criteria on which you receive marks in the speaking test? Which of these 5 areas do you think you are not assessed on? We've spoken about assessment before during this course. An examiner assesses your writing and your speaking and gives you a mark. As I said, there are 2 examiners in the room during your test, but only one examiner speaks to you. The other examiner is listening to your English and assessing you on specific criteria. Then the examiner will give you a mark based on this criteria. You won't know this mark, and you won't know if you have passed the speaking test until you get all your results that are sent by Cambridge after the exam. These are the 4 areas that the assessment criteria is based on: grammar and vocabulary, discourse management, pronunciation, and interactive communication. You will not be assessed on what your opinion is. You should give your opinion, especially in part 3 when you discuss with your partner. Yes, you give your opinion, but giving opinion is not something the examiner is marking you on. Let's look at the 4 assessment areas a bit more closely. Grammar and vocabulary. So have you used a range of grammar and vocabulary in your speaking? Discourse management. Have you participated effectively in the conversations and discussions? Have you answered the questions well? Pronunciation. Can you be understood? Is your word stress and sentence stress mostly accurate? Do you pronounce individual sounds clearly? And do you use appropriate intonation when you speak? Interactive communication. Have you completed the tasks effectively? This means communicating effectively with your partner and with the examiner. This is the criteria that the examiner uses to give you a mark for your speaking. The 4 areas of assessment are at the top: grammar and vocabulary, discourse management, pronunciation, and interactive communication. At the side on the left, you can see 5 bands: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It all looks a bit complicated, but you need to focus on band 3 because band 3 and above is a pass. So let's look at band 3. For grammar and vocabulary, it says accurate, simple grammar and attempts or tries to say complex grammar. That means if you try to say a third conditional sentence, for example, and it's not correct, that's okay because you attempted to say some complex grammar. It says uses a range of vocabulary. That means try not to repeat the same expressions. For example, don't always say, yes, I agree, yes, I agree, yes, I agree, yes, I agree. Use 2 or 3 different expressions. For example, yes, that's true. I see your point. I completely agree with you. For discourse management in band 3, it says extended language. That means don't just say yes. Say yes because, and then give a reason. Extend your answers, make them longer. Make your replies and your answers long, not short. Don't worry about giving answers that are too long. You should worry about giving answers that are too short. It also says uses a range of cohesive devices. Cohesive devices join your ideas together when you speak. They're words and expressions like and, but, because, even though, another thing is, due to, apart from that, for example, what is more, on top of that, so, actually, etc. Moving on to pronunciation, the examiner needs to understand you. Sometimes that just means speaking loudly and clearly. Now, you may be a bit nervous during the test, and when we get nervous, we speak more softly and with less confidence. You need to speak loudly. The examiner cannot give you a mark if he or she can't hear what you're saying. It's also important to pronounce individual sounds correctly. For example, don't say focus, say focus. Don't say friends, say friends. And be careful of word stress. Say hotel, not hotel. And say photograph, not photograph. Actually, just say photo, it's easier. The last area of assessment is interactive communication. That means, have you completed the tasks effectively and interacted well with your partner and with the examiner when he or she asked you a question? This is especially relevant in part 3 when you speak with your partner, but also when you're answering questions from the examiner. So remember to be interactive. You need to ask your partner questions so that you're not talking all the time and your partner's not talking all the time. So you need to be interactive. And one more thing, if your partner doesn't speak, if your partner doesn't say anything to you in part 3, you need to ask your partner questions. If your partner doesn't answer, then you say what you think. It's not your fault if your partner doesn't speak. If this does happen in your test, your partner doesn't speak, you won't lose marks. Your partner will lose marks for not being interactive. If, on the other hand, your partner speaks too much in part 3, you should try to interrupt your partner. Say something like, sorry to interrupt you, but I think, or wait for your partner to take a breath and then say something. I agree with you, or I don't agree with you because. If you try to speak and your partner doesn't let you or doesn't allow you to speak, that's not your fault. That's your partner's fault, and your partner will lose marks. Let's watch an example test, a full speaking test for 14 minutes, and I want you to mark both candidates according to the examiner's criteria. So go to the PDF support document named Speaking Examiner's Mark Sheet and open it. You'll see the 4 speaking test criteria: grammar and vocabulary, discourse management, pronunciation, and interactive communication. The 2 candidates are Florine from the Netherlands and Maria from Argentina. Watch the test, and as you're watching, I want you to give them a mark from 1 to 5 for each of the 4 areas. You can also give half a mark if you like. So 3.5 or 4.5 or 2.5, etc. Remember, 3 or higher means that they pass the speaking test. Are you ready? Do you have the Speaking Examiner's Mark Sheet open? Okay, here we go.
Good afternoon. My name is Jenny Cook and this is my colleague Jenny Tennant. And your names are?
My name is Florine.
And my name is Maria.
Can I have your mark sheets, please?
Yes, of course.
Here you go.
Thank you. Where are you from, Florine?
I'm from Holland, from the Netherlands.
And you,
And
Maria?
me, I'm from Argentina.
Well, first we'd like to know something about you. Florine, tell us about a film you really like.
I really like the movie Titanic. I actually have seen it last night. And I like it because it's the story actually happened. And I like the love relationship between the two main characters.
Maria, are you going to do anything special this weekend?
Yes, this weekend I'm going with my best friends to the cinema to see a comedy film.
And Florine, how much television do you watch in a week?
Actually, quite a lot. My mom doesn't always really like it. But I watch kind of different things. I watch the regular news and also just like the lazy entertainment programs. And also I watch a lot of movies. So yeah, quite a lot actually.
Maria, do you ever listen to the radio?
Not often, but some Sundays I switch on the radio to listen music.
Thank you. In this part of the test, I'm going to give each of you 2 photographs. I'd like you to talk about your photographs on your own for about a minute, and also to answer a question about your partner's photographs. Florine, it's your turn first. Here are your photographs. They show people who are helping other people in different situations. I'd like you to compare the photographs and say how important it is to help people in these situations. All right?
Yeah. I think in the first picture it's someone helping a soccer player because he's obviously hurt. And in the second photo, the police officer is helping, I think it must be a tourist because there is a map in the photo. And I think it's really important to help people in those situations because they both needed help, and in the first picture the person is probably in pain because mostly when you play a sport you can get injuries. And in the second photo I think it's also very important that the police officer is willing to help the tourist because it's just I think police officers are there because they have to serve the people.
Thank you. Maria, do you find it easy to ask for help when you have a problem?
It depends what problem I have, because sometimes when you are in different places you are shy, so you don't ask to help.
Thank you. Can I have the booklet, please?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Now, Maria, here are your photographs. They show people spending time in different gardens. I'd like you to compare the photographs and say what you think the people are enjoying about spending time in these gardens.
Okay, I can see in the first picture a woman doing gardening maybe in his house. And the second one I can see in a beautiful park, maybe near London, and we are spending time with his family. And well, the first one, the girl is planting a nice plant, and I think both are enjoying a lot these hobbies.
Thank you. Florine, which garden would you prefer to spend time in?
I think I would prefer the garden in the first picture because I think it's her own garden. And I like working in the garden with my mom and dad. So I think I would enjoy spending time in my own garden most. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I have the booklet, please? Thank you. Now, I'd like you to talk about something together for about 2 minutes. I'd like you to imagine that a town wants more tourists to visit. Here are some ideas they're thinking about and a question for you to discuss. First, you have some time to look at the task.
Okay.
Now, talk to each other about why these ideas would attract more tourists to the town.
Well, I think all the ideas on the booklet are quite good actually. I think holiday flats will attract more tourists because there is just more space for the tourists to live in while they're on holiday. And what do you think about that?
Well, I agree with you, but maybe providing parks is much better.
Why do you think that actually?
Because I think to spend time in parks are good with the family.
Yeah, I think can have a lot of fun in parks though. Just having a nice picnic with your friends or stuff. Yeah, that would be nice. But more shops, yeah, I think it would be nice because I think a lot of people, mostly women, like shopping, and I think having a lot of shops in your town would be nice for the shopaholics.
Yes, or I don't know, maybe the tourists like to spend more time in parks than go shopping, no?
Maybe. If you're kind of a nature person, if you like nature a lot, then parks are probably much better than a lot of shops.
Yes.
Putting up security cameras, yeah, I think that's a really good idea because then the town is safe and tourists will feel safe.
Yes, with the cameras are a good idea because the people are more safe than without cameras
Yeah.
of the people that want to steal.
Yeah. No, I don't think building a large nightclub is really a good idea to attract tourists. I don't know.
It depends the age of the tourist, no?
Yeah, that definitely, but I don't think
No.
it will attract a lot of tourists because of one club. I think
Yes.
it's a combination of several things that attract tourists.
Thank you. Now you have about a minute to decide which idea would be best for the town.
Okay. So what do you think is the best idea for the town to do?
I think building holiday flats, maybe.
Yes. Why do you think that?
Because all the tourists like to have flats to stay.
Yeah, but maybe the parks are just are a better idea to provide because they're really nice to just have a walk in and enjoy the nature with your friends and family.
Yes. So if you like providing parks, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I do think that's a good idea. Yeah, but also the holiday flats I think is a good idea because you have to have space for the tourists to live in. So if there's no space, there probably won't be a lot of tourists. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I have the booklet, please? Thank you. Florine, do you think you have to spend a lot of money to have a good holiday?
I don't think you have to spend a lot of money because I think you can also you can also have a good holiday when you're with just your friends or people you like to spend time with. And I don't think that should be in a nice fancy hotel or something where you have to spend a lot of money. just you have to be with people you like and enjoy being with.
What do you think, Maria?
Well, it depends which place you want to go, because maybe if you want to go to an island, I think you are going to spend a lot of money than if you go to a campsite with friends.
Maria, some people say we travel too much these days and shouldn't go on so many holidays. What do you think?
Yes, I think nowadays, a lot of people travel more than few years ago, because I think the world is increasing, so the people likes to travel.
Do you agree, Florine?
I think we travel a lot these days, but I think that's also because everybody has got a lot more money to spend. So I think they spend it on traveling because they want to see a lot of the world. So.
Florine, do you think people have enough time for holidays these days?
No, I don't think so. I think if you're in school, like I am, you've got a lot of long breaks, especially the summer break is a long break. But I think when you're done with school and you have to start your professional life, then there isn't a lot of time for holidays. So, yeah.
And you, Maria?
Yes, I agree with Florine, but some people works not a lot, so maybe can take more holidays than other people.
Why do you think people like to go away on holiday?
Well, I think because they would like to see a lot of different parts of the world, so they can just like develop their knowledge of it.
Yes, and it's a good idea to spend time doing this traveling around the world.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea as well.
What do you think is the biggest advantage of living in a place where there are a lot of tourists?
I actually don't really think that there are a lot of advantages. Do you think that?
No, because maybe the city or the town is going to be so crowded, so you can't do a lot of activities because all the places are full.
Yeah, I think it's mostly the only big advantage is that you get a lot of money from the tourists, so it's good for the local economy.
The economy.
Yeah, I don't think for the city itself it's a big advantage to have a lot of foreign people. So, yeah.
And what can people do to have a good holiday in Holland?
I think they should go to Amsterdam because it's the main city of the Netherlands, and I think they can spend a lot of time in the nature that we have got, mostly in the north of the Netherlands. It's very pretty, and I think most cities are pretty nice to visit because everyone is really nice. Yeah, and they're willing to help you if you need something.
And in Argentina?
Well, in Argentina, if you like to do some nature activities, you can go to the Iguazu Falls. And then in the south, you can do sports in the snow, such as skiing, snowboard, or walking with friends.
Thank you. That is the end of the test.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That's what a full B2 speaking test looks like. And your test, when you take the test, it will be very similar. So what did you think? Do you think Florine and Maria passed their speaking test? I'm a Cambridge examiner and I've been examining B2 first students since 1997. I've tested thousands of candidates, and this is what I think. I hope you agree that Florine is a very good, a very strong candidate. she moved the task forward. In part 3, she was very interactive throughout the test. She has a wide vocabulary, she has accurate grammar, and she has good pronunciation. In part 2, Florine used language to speculate about the photographs. She said, "I think it must be a tourist. The person is probably in pain." In part 3, she asked questions like, "What do you think?" and "Why do you think that?" This is good interaction. Florine interacts well with her partner. Maria would, I think, just pass the speaking part. And I know what you're thinking. In part 3, she stopped talking. Yes, she did. But the rest of the test, apart from that, was okay. She did the other tasks well enough, and she had some nice vocabulary, like spending time with her family, and the girl is planting a nice plant. It depends what problems I have. There's a woman doing gardening, etc. In the exam, you're not compared to your partner. You are marked independently, individually, and separately from your partner, according to the exam criteria that we've looked at. And the examiner who is talking to you during the test and giving you the photographs and the tasks, that examiner also gives you a general mark. It's called a global mark, which is also taken into account in your final mark. So, in my opinion, both of these students would pass, but Florine would definitely get a higher mark. And remember, you can fail the speaking, you can get a 2 or a 2.5, for example, and still pass the exam. But of course, you need to get a high mark in the other parts to compensate. Here are some things to think about before you take your speaking test. Think about what you could say in part 1 before the test, but do not learn and repeat complete sentences. It doesn't sound natural and the examiner will probably stop you. Do you remember that mind map that we used for part 1? When we mapped out ideas for your hobbies, your family, your work, studies, holidays, etc. Make sure you know how you would describe the area where you live and your house or flat. During the test, don't give short yes or no answers. Add a short comment to every answer. Follow yes or no with because and give a reason. Speak loudly and clearly. The examiner may not be sitting close to you, and you must speak so that both examiners can hear you. Practice speaking loudly with your mobile phone and record yourself. Don't worry about making mistakes. It's okay to make some mistakes, especially if you're using difficult grammar. But if you do say something and you know it's a mistake, correct yourself immediately. For example, if you say in the photograph the people is having lunch, correct yourself. Sorry, I mean the people are having lunch. Then the examiner knows that you know the correct grammar. And don't worry if the examiner says thank you and stops you when you're in the middle of a sentence. This is because the examiner is watching a clock, a timer, and it's important that all the candidates have the same amount of time to speak. And finally, smile. Many students forget this. Body language is important. So make eye contact with the examiner and smile. Don't look down at the floor. Make a positive impression and try to relax and enjoy the test. This is your chance to show how well you speak English. So try to enjoy the test. Now, let's see what you remember. Take the quiz for this lesson and check your answers when you've finished. In video 29, you can practice with a full speaking test. And when you do that, get your mobile phone ready, because I want you to record yourself speaking during the test and then listen to the recording to see where you can improve your speaking. Practice speaking English whenever you can. Take every opportunity to practice your speaking. Meet up with friends regularly and agree to only speak English for half an hour once or twice a week. Join a language exchange group if there is one in your area. You can also find a language exchange group online and use Zoom or Skype to practice your English. And when you watch films or TV series in English, or when you listen to podcasts, listen carefully to the language that native English speakers use and try to copy it. Write down expressions that you like and that you want to use when you speak English, and practice them as often as possible. In the next lesson, we're going to review the listening test, and I'll give you some final tips on how to prepare yourself so that you can get a great mark in the listening part and pass the B2 first exam. So I'll see you in the next video.